Because there was some skipping, and the reason why there was skipping, when I plugged into my actual modem or router or whatever you want to call it, it was plugged in, but it wasn't routed to the right 5G versus 2G. So it was still taking, I guess, it wasn't taken from the 5G, it was taken from the 2G. So I actually got to go in and manually put in the 5G password and everything. So now it finally says it is in the right place. What a pain in the ass. Oh my God. So anyways, sorry about that, but I want to make sure that I have a I'm gonna hope that this isn't skip either, but I'm gonna make sure this works. But that was the reason why I'm doing this again. Okay, so I had to verbalize this, but I am breaking my book down to where I am explaining from the macro to the micro. Okay, so the universe, your community, and biodiversity. Okay, to simplify everything is going to make it easier to explain why people do what they do, why systems are what they are, and there's no way to please everyone that's at different levels of incline and decline. And so, yes, the government and politics, religion, and science have to find a happy medium, and they do cater to people's proclivities and their biochemistry. And so, yes, that's why you always have this push between different people because they are galvanizing together based upon very similar biochemistries and belief systems that you can't penetrate. Okay? And so the struggle that I've been doing is try to how do I introduce like a preface of the subject matter I'm going to be talking about, and then also how am I going to introduce then the actual specific things that are going to explain the universe, the community, and your biodiversity. So, we have a combination of life and death in our body, mind, and spirits, as well as a combination of life and death in our community's body, mind, and spirit. And we have a combination of life and death in the universe, as well as a combination of the micro and the macro in all of that, a combination of as above, so below, and a combination of Jesus and Satan. Okay? And so that's why there's really there's nobody evil in our world, and there's nobody super good in our world. We're just at different combinations of life and death in the body, and then we act upon those biochemical fluctuations. And so it's the job of politics, religion, and science right now to find to balance all of that out and still have a thriving working community where we have order, not chaos. Okay? And so this is how I'm going to explain it. You live in a planned universe with a combination of organized intelligence and disorganized chaos. You also live in a planned economy with planned communities on a planned biodiversity with both organized intelligence and disorganized chaos, and it can only go one of two ways. Okay? So one way is a combination of life and death in one entity with more life than death. Therefore, indefinite life is possible because of the science here, not so much the theoretical religion or politics, because of mitotic reproduction. That's the telomere lengthening. That's where you're able to regenerate at the micro level and release simultaneously things that the body doesn't need. Because remember, any entity out there, whether it's a dog, an insect, or a human, and even a community, if you have too much life in one area, it usurps the energy, so therefore the body has to get rid of anything excess, or it's going to cause an imbalance. And that's where the whole thing with the Georgia Guidestones. Okay? Be not a cancer on this earth, and then guiding reproduction carefully, and then the whole thing with balancing Mother Nature and 500 million people type of thing. That's the goal, is 500 million people on this earth, which, oh my God, what is that going to look like, and what's the journey to get to 500 million people? What does that mean? Well, we live in a planned economy. You have a planning commission in your county, you have a planning commission in your state, you have a planning commission in your country, as well as the world. And so you can draw your own conclusions from there. So you have planned communities, and right now we're experiencing a planned economy, One example, people are bitching about $4 a gallon for gas. Okay, well, where are you going to go anyways? You're supposed to be at home quarantining or, not gathering, and you can politicize that if you want. Okay? So we're in the crux of a planned economy and planned communities on planned biodiversity with both organized intelligence and disorganized chaos. So a combination of life and death. Okay, this is the one of two ways of where disorganized or organized intelligence and disorganized chaos can ultimately end up with mitotic reproduction. You have more organization, more life in your body. Okay, which means that you'll be able to potentially live indefinitely. The second outcome of someone that has a combination of life and death in their body is more death than life in their body. Therefore, the end result is death at some point. That's what they expect. And then they trigger meiosis or sexual reproduction. Okay? Based upon your intention. So you can have someone that has more death than life in their body with no intention to procreate. And so, yes, they'll end up passing away. And they may still trigger meiosis, but it doesn't mean that it's going to result in an actual baby. It just means that they'll have fun trying to make something that they're not going to actually intend to make. Okay? And that's kind of like, all over the world. And so you always have a combination of life and death within the universe, the community, and the body. But how much of each will determine mitosis or meiosis. And so this is where, okay, now we understand this, and then we understand what makes people do what they do. Then this is where the evolution and discrimination come from, is based upon people's biochemical fluctuations with more death and life in their body and more life than death. And that's people who are more balanced, that don't discriminate, have more life than death in their body because they're not working from a biochemical bias, a confirmation bias. So this is what I wrote here. Change of all types is jolting. So right now you're seeing so many changes. You're seeing people being put into power that you don't agree with. You don't like their lifestyle or what they look like and all that. And that's irrelevant. Nobody cares what you think. That's based upon your biochemical intolerance, your biochemical bias, your confirmation bias, whatever. So change of all types is jolting. Don't let it stop your evolution. And don't let it stop you from finding beauty in all people, person, places, and things. Okay, so if you have any type of discrimination against a person, place, or thing, any noun, then you are working from a biochemical bias that's causing your behavior to be more extreme in your beliefs and then also your behaviors. So not everything is a conspiracy to trigger your paranoia and fear of something different. Okay, so right now people are thinking like, oh yeah, the vaccines, or oh yeah, the therapeutics, which, okay, we can't possibly know the intention. We just know that we have 7 billion people on this planet that are dealing with major predispositions, and you can't stop a virus from bringing up the predispositions, and you can't stop a vaccine that has a form of it, of your environment, to bring up your predispositions. And yes, you're going to find a lot of people not reacting well to it. Okay? And you're going to find a lot of people that are reacting fine to it. And that's where, you stay in your corner and you don't worry about what somebody else's belief system is or whatever. So you must be strong enough to handle all changes in the environment. And if you have an intolerance and discrimination against a person, place, or thing, you have a plethora of weaknesses. And you can't pretend that you're non-discriminatory because you only discriminate against one thing but not another. So you can have a discrimination against 10 things and be totally okay with the other 10 things, but you're still not a balanced person. You're still not someone who can claim that you're non-discriminatory because you already have discrimination against fluoride, against GMO, against vaccines or therapeutics. Now, I'm not saying that therapeutics and vaccines are bad. The thing is I want more life than death in my body, which means that I'm going to be making sure that I support my body correctly to handle whatever fluctuations that are in the environment. Do I absolutely need a vaccine? No, but if it requires me to get it because of public health, I'll do it. I don't necessarily need any therapeutics because there's nothing to therapeutize. I'm pretty much balanced, so I'll never really use any therapeutics. Therapeutics are only there for people who are imbalanced. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you have imbalances and you turn to therapeutics, you can't argue with the result that you're still not going to to evolve into a person who potentially could, trigger indefinite life. So you're going to come from major confirmation biases. You'll be totally discriminatory and you'll blame everyone and their mother because of your situation. Okay? And so every single change in the environment is going to challenge your ability to handle evolution. That means, yes, the virus. That means, yes, the vaccines. That means, yes, the changes in the food supply, your ability to tolerate fluctuations in your body, mind, spirit, as well as your community. So every single change in your environment is going to challenge your ability to handle evolution and your ability to tolerate fluctuations in your body, mind, and spirit, as well as the community's body, mind, and spirit. So yes, the community is going to be changing. Okay? And we are going to honor those with different biochemistries, regardless if you believe their biochemistry should exemplify and show a specific way. It's going to be jolting, yes. When you were taught one way, and we have a society that's one way, and one side of society is being hidden away because they're too different. Now you're going to see everyone that you have basically been discriminated against is going to be right there in your face, forcing you to deal with that we do have a segment of our society that has a different biochemistry, and you got to deal with it. And you got to get rid of your confirmation biases, and you got to be able to get rid of your biases. But if you can't, then you're going to have to be hidden away because you won't be able to handle, your community, which means that maybe you should get on the J juice so you can handle the evolution of your society. Because there's going to be people that, yes, are going to be in specific jobs and they are going to want to pass away. That's their belief system. And you let them do their jobs. They'll be around for 20, 30 years to take care of your water, to keep law and order in your community, because you don't want straight up anarchy. How do you live with straight up anarchy? You have to have some kind of law and order in your community. So yes, you're going to have a segment of society that's going to, die and reproduce and pass along those genetics, and then biotech's going to try to tweak everything to make you, the person relatively balanced based upon the community, and that's none of your business. But you will deal with whatever you have caused yourself or intended upon yourself, which is like the J juice, or you take part in whatever campaigns that are out there. So if you need help adapting and meeting your community halfway, do the J juice. I use a mesh mask. It has holes in it. It's not like, I'm wearing double layers, but the double layers, are for people that can't handle their environment. I mean, if you're wearing a double layer mask, then that should be pretty much like, okay, you should be pretty much protected. I choose to wear a single layer mask with mesh because I want to be able to handle my environment and take in the environment in small doses. And that's my way to therapeutize myself until my government says that that's not enough, that I have to go get vaccinated. And then fine, I'll do the vaccines, do the J juice, and evolve. And I'll be fine with that. So you may or may not agree with someone else's politics or lifestyle, but you don't have to hang out with them. You can draw boundaries in your world and let the authorities decide what is criminal behavior and then who is victim and who is predator. I can only be responsible for my personal world and my dog, and that's it. My husband has his own personal world, and so do all of our friends, and we cannot possibly legislate morals onto other people. Only law and order can do that. That right there gives me so much peace that I don't have to worry about everyone else and their belief systems and their lifestyles and figuring out whether or not there's a predator or a prey and determining who's a victim and who's a predator. And I can draw my own boundaries against anything that I don't agree with. Live and let live. And this is why, I've come up against people who, that said that, oh God, when I said I'm glad that Zuckerberg is cracking down on the holistic world, prescribing antibiotics to people who claim they want to live. And they're just like, well, what about these pictures and things that, that they're allowing on the internet that could show things that could be construed in different ways, and it looks like they're victimizing somebody. And then you let law enforcement, because maybe those are fishing for those that have those proclivities, and they're looking and they're trying to watch that community to see if they're going to be crossing boundaries and victimizing people. See, you don't really know what is behind what goes on Facebook. You only know one side, and then your paranoia that everyone's trying to victimize each other comes out, and then people want to go on these activist campaigns. They're just, hot to trot. So we really don't know what's behind anything, except for the fact that if you want to promote life, then it must be things that are promoting life, and that is the laws of life and death. So Then I said, and then what did I say? The universe gave us the means to identify and differentiate. Okay? So the universe gives us this controlled type of organized intelligence and then a disorganized chaos that's still relatively organized, but not really. It's an organized chaos, disorganized. You can call it what you want. Chaos, unorganized chaos is like oxymoronic, but I mean, there are still things that are organized. Even the little entities that are organized, they're just swirling around together, not making any kind of form until, electromagnetism and gravity and then, combustion, conception, explosions, then turn that thing into some kind of form based upon chemical bondings, ionic and covalent bondings, and then it creates a human who then creates categories because they have the gift of language and communication. I mean, if they didn't have the gift of language and communication, then it would be biochemistry, like a dog. The dog can only react to its environment based upon its biochemistry. So when it senses danger, my dog, when she senses somebody's in the environment that doesn't belong, her hair raises up and she growls, and she's like, my little alarm clock or alarm of something that's not right that I can't detect, but she can detect that. So that's the animal that doesn't have the gift of the words. Even though I tell her when she barks at me or when she, wags her tail at me, I'm like, use your words. And she's like, what the fuck? But really, it's like, sugar, what do you want? And then she runs toward what she wants. She runs towards her food dish, she runs towards the door, or she runs towards the back door saying, hey, there's some weird squirrel out there, you know, playing with each other. And so yeah, so humans have the ability with the gift of language to create categories. And then man created language and perception, how they perceive those categories, whether it's right or wrong, good or bad, they're judging and perceiving, right? So man created language and they perceive based upon their biochemistry, their imbalances. So behavior stems from biodiversity's personal biochemical biases. So when you go out there in the world and someone reacts to you in such a way, they have a biochemical bias because they have, you know, their lifestyle, what kind of, predispositions they're dealing with, and then their belief systems because you kind of know your friends and family, and so their belief systems comes from their biochemistry. And the only way to change a belief system truly at the root level is to change biochemistry. And if you don't choose to change your biochemistry, then you'll always work from a very rudimentary belief system that's rooted from years and years of reinforcement, and you can't penetrate that unless that person feels that their belief system, it doesn't work for them anymore, and then they choose to see. People can choose to adopt a different belief system even though they don't change their biochemistry, but it's like, you know what belief system are they choosing? Or like, okay, well, I'm not going to drink coffee anymore, I'm going to drink Diet Coke. So you can think that Diet Coke and coffee are two different belief systems, but they're really the same thing in a different form. So do they really change their belief system, or do they just, trade addictions? So that's the what do you call it? That's the deceptiveness of someone who hasn't changed their biochemistry thinking they've changed their belief system because they went from opioids to kratom or something, or they went from prescription drugs to cannabis. Oh, I changed my belief system. No, you just traded one addiction for the other. And so that's how humans can rationalize that they've changed when they really haven't changed at all. They just traded something for something else. But it's still the same reasoning behind it. There's still the same intention. There's still the same outcome. They're still going to die anyways. And they really haven't changed shit. But hey, they rationalize why they went from prescription meds to cannabis. Okay, that's your world. It's not my world, but that's your world. It's not for me to say if it's right or wrong. But if you say you want to live and you're doing everything that it's not going to cause you to live, then maybe somebody needs to kind of wake you up a little bit and say, okay, there's a different way to be, and indefinite life is possible, even though, right now your biochemistry doesn't believe it. So that's really what my book is going to entail. And it's going to be a lot of stuff in it because I'm going to go over things that would happen in 2020. 2020 was so full of meat of people's being triggered and the biochemistry, and then the planned communities and planned economies and Georgia Guidestones and the what is it, the behavioral sink, Google that, and how they do experiments on rats and humans, and, the psychological operations to ferret out the extremists and to figure out where people's proclivities lay within, and then campaigns are put out there, and then you're seeing things in mainstream media that cause people to be triggered and react. And it's very, very, very interesting. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm very intrigued by it all. So, anyways, I'm gonna listen to this and see if there's any skipping. Hopefully I freaking solved it. But you guys have a good day. Bye.